My father tried to apologize to me in the church parking lot, 10 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. I walked away, and then I read his apology out loud at the altar. Not to him, to everyone. I grew up in a family where we didn't really talk about feelings, we just prayed louder. If you were angry, you gave it to God. If you were sad, you trusted God's timing. If you were terrified and your world was collapsing, you praised through the storm. Neatly avoids therapy, I'll give them that. My father was an elder at our church. Not the main pastor, but close enough to feel important and far enough to never be questioned. He was the man people went to for godly advice. The one who prayed with a hand on your shoulder and a Bible verse on his tongue, like both were extensions of his body. At home, his specialty was mostly volume. You never knew what version of him was coming through the door at night. Sometimes he brought donuts and kissed my mom's cheek. Sometimes he slammed the cabinet doors hard enough to make the plates rattle and demanded to know why the house wasn't cleaner, why dinner was late, why the air itself didn't feel more grateful to be breathing the same oxygen as him. My mother would smooth everything over with the same tight smile and say the same line. Your father carries a lot of weight on his shoulders. As if that explained why he could dump it all on ours. When I was 14, I told him I didn't want to be baptized. I know. Rookie mistake. In our church, baptism at 16 was kind of the big show. White robe, family photos, cake with Bible verses iced on top. But I'd been sitting in those pews my whole life, listening to sermons about love and grace while watching my father weaponize both at home. Somewhere between Leviticus and yet another, "Wives, submit to your husband's" sermon, I started to suspect we were all in a very elaborate group performance. I didn't want to make a promise in front of everyone that I wasn't sure I believed. So one night at dinner, I cleared my throat and said, "I don't think I'm ready to be baptized." You would have thought I'd announced I was starting a satanic rock band and moving into a nightclub. The silence hit first. My mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My little brother stared at his plate like the peas might save him. My father put his knife down very carefully, like the table was suddenly made of glass. "What did you say?" he asked. "I'm not ready. It feels fake. I don't want to lie to God." Wrong justification, apparently. "Don't be dramatic," he snapped. "No one is ever ready. It's obedience, not a feeling." "Well, I don't want to do it just to keep up appearances. That feels." The word hypocritical was halfway to my lips when he slammed his palm on the table so hard my water glass jumped. "Enough," he said. His voice had that low, lethal calm he reserved for church board meetings and disappointing children. "You will not make a spectacle of yourself, or of his family. You will be baptized with your class. End of discussion." I tried once more, quietly. "Dad, I just want to be honest." He pointed at me like he was casting out a demon. "You are not honest. You're rebellious, prideful. You're letting the devil put doubt in your mind to embarrass your family. You want to shame me? You want to shame your mother? After everything I've done for you." There it was, the line that would become the soundtrack of my adolescence. "After everything I've done for you." That night, he didn't speak to me again. Neither did my mother. Not really. She made a show of normal conversation. "Did you finish your homework?" But there was a new brittleness in her voice. I got baptized 2 years later on schedule. I went under the water wondering if God took roll call, or if he just watched people lying to themselves in white robes inside. The explosion came 2 years after that. I was 16 and stupid enough to think I was in love. His name was Mark. He played bass in the worship band and had the kind of floppy hair that made youth group girls write Bible verses in their notebooks like love letters. We were careful. At least we thought we were. But apparently we were exactly 2 months and 3 bad decisions away from my life detonating. I found out I was pregnant in the church bathroom because of course I did. I stared at the little pink plus sign while the fluorescent light hummed overhead and the smell of industrial cleaner burned my nose. The irony was not subtle. I told my mother first. She sat on the edge of her bed, hands folded in her lap like she was waiting for a judge's sentence. "What are we going to tell your father?" she whispered. "Maybe we don't tell him," I said, trying to breathe. "I could. I don't know. Figure something out." Her eyes snapped to mine, horrified. "You will not kill my grandchild." So that decision was made for me. We told him that evening. Or rather, I told him, and my mother watched like a bystander at a car crash she predicted but couldn't stop. He listened. He didn't interrupt. Didn't shout. His face went very still, every muscle tight. Who? He asked. Mark, I whispered. From Chia. He closed his eyes like the word itself was offensive. You will pack a bag, he said. You will go stay with your aunt 3 hours away. You will not tell anyone why. If anyone asks, you're helping her with the baby. You will have this child, and then we will arrange an adoption. Your name will not be on anything. Do you understand me? The world narrowed. You're sending me away? I said, like I'm some scandal to be shipped out of town. He stared at me. You are 16. You have brought shame on this family, on this church, on God. This is the consequence. What about what I want? I asked, my voice shaking. He laughed once. No humor, just disbelief. You should have thought about what you wanted with your legs closed. I flinched. Dad, please, I whispered. I'll stay here. I'll finish school. We'll figure it out. He moved closer, and for a second, I thought he was going to hit me. He never had. But there's a certain way a man can lean in that lets you imagine it. You will do exactly what I say, he murmured. You will not ruin my reputation. You will not embarrass your mother. You will not make me the elder with the pregnant daughter. If you love this family at all, you will be obedient. There, on the living room carpet, somewhere between the coffee table and the television, something inside me quietly snapped. Not with fireworks. Just a small, final crack. So I went. I packed a bag. I moved in with my aunt. I had the baby in a hospital 2 towns over. I held him once. Just once. He was small and perfect, and bewildered by the world, like every new human who has no idea the adults around them are going to call their panic God's plan. The adoption social worker told me I was doing the brave thing. I don't remember signing the papers. I just remember my father standing in the corner of the hospital room, arms crossed, like he was supervising a home renovation. On the drive back to my aunt's house, he finally spoke. This never happened, he said. Do you understand me? You do not talk about this. Not to anyone. Not even in confession. This is done. God has forgiven you. Don't pick the scab. Translation, God has forgiven you. I haven't. But please don't ruin my image. I nodded, because what else was there to do? I was 16, hemorrhaging grief and stitches, and the man who controlled my life had declared the subject closed. So it closed. We never spoke of it again. The next time we were all in church together, I watched him take communion with a steady hand. Bread, cup, head bowed. I caught myself wondering if God ever choked on the irony. You can recover from a lot at 16. Bodies bounce back. Faces fill out. Report cards get cleaned up. People call you strong because you didn't throw yourself into traffic. They don't see that you just stopped feeling much of anything. By 22, I had done the good girl rehab program. I went to college, got serious, worked part-time, went to therapy twice, hated how much it stirred up, and stopped going. I moved out, came home for holidays, smiled at the right people, took exactly 1 sip of champagne at my cousin's wedding, and never heard the end of it. You don't want to be that girl again, my father said afterward, half joking. Always a step away from disaster. That girl, as if she was a stranger we vaguely remembered. I met Daniel when I was 24. He was not church people. He believed in God in a quiet, non-slogan way. He didn't flinch when I told him I wasn't sure what I believed. He just asked, "What do you want to believe?" Which, for someone raised on, "Thus saith the Lord," was almost offensive. He was gentle where my father was sharp, patient where my father was impatient, and honest in ways I didn't realize I'd stopped expecting from men. The first time he came to dinner with my family, my father evaluated him the way you'd check the structural integrity of a bridge before crossing. On the drive home, Daniel said, "Your dad is intense." "That's one word for it," I muttered. "Does he always talk like he's preaching a sermon?" "Yes, sometimes in his sleep." We laughed. But when we got engaged a year later, it stopped being funny. Because getting married meant planning a wedding. And planning a wedding meant invitations. And invitations meant church. And church meant my father. We fought about it, of course. "We can elope," Daniel said, more than once. "We can get married on a beach somewhere. In a courthouse. In your aunt's backyard. It's our wedding." "I know," I said. But if we don't invite them, it'll be nuclear. Forever nuclear. Isn't it already? He asked, gently. I looked away. There are levels. In the end, we compromised in the most dysfunctional way possible. We had the wedding at my parents' church, and I told my father he would not be walking me down the aisle. I would walk alone. You would have thought I'd announced I was burning the church down for my entrance. You're being ridiculous, he snapped on the phone. It's tradition. A father walks his daughter to her husband. It's symbolic. Exactly, I said. I'm not your property being handed off like a used car. I'll walk myself. Silence. Then, coldly, if you're going to disrespect me like this, maybe I shouldn't even come. I swallowed. If you don't want to come, that's your choice. I'm not punishing you. I'm just not pretending. He laughed, low and bitter. You have always loved drama. I almost told him then. About the hospital bathroom. The pink plus sign. The child I'd held once and never seen again. The way his voice had been the soundtrack of my shame. Instead, I said, dinner is at 6 on Saturday if you want to come with Mom to the tasting. And hung up. It was easier that way. Keep everything polite. Keep everything pretty. We were very good at pretending. We'd had years of practice. The apology arrived 3 weeks before the wedding. Not in person. Obviously. That would have required actual courage. It came as a voicemail. I was at work, finishing an email, when my phone buzzed. Dad, the screen said. I stared at it until it went to missed call. A minute later, the voicemail notification popped up. I left it there for an hour. 50 minutes of pretending I didn't see it, and 10 minutes of staring at it like it might bite me. Finally, I put in my headphones and pressed play. His voice came through my earbuds, quieter than I remembered. There were sounds in the background, a TV, maybe, or the dishwasher. Hi, it's your dad. As if I had 6 other fathers in the rotation. Long pause. I heard him inhale. I know you're busy. With work. With wedding stuff. I just wanted to say, I've been thinking. About some things. About the past. About the way I handled certain situations. You could practically hear him stepping around landmines. I'm not good with this kind of conversation. You know that. My father wasn't either. He gave me, well, let's just say he wasn't exactly a warm hug and a heart-to-heart. But that's no excuse. Another long pause. I was hard on you, he said finally. Too hard. I thought I was protecting you. From yourself. From making mistakes. From getting hurt. I see now that I did a lot of the hurting myself. I didn't listen. I made you carry burdens you shouldn't have had to carry. I put reputation ahead of relationship. The words sounded like he'd rehearse them. Or read them straight off a Christian counseling blog. I know you're angry, he went on. You have every right to be. I know there are things we don't talk about. Things I insisted we didn't talk about. I thought I was being wise. I see now that I was being a coward. I stopped my fingers from clenching, my nails digging into my palm. I want you to know, he said, voice rougher now, that I'm sorry. For my part in it. For all of it. For the words I said. For the way I said them. For not being the father you needed. I can't change the past. But I would like a chance to do better in the future. If you'll let me. There was a long silence. I thought the message had ended. But then he added almost in a rush. I'd be honored to walk you down the aisle. If you change your mind. Ah. There it was. The price tag. Anyway, he said quickly. I love you. That's all. Call me if you want. The voicemail ended. I sat there at my desk, computer screen glowing, fluorescent lights humming above me, holding my phone like it was something radioactive. Part of me wanted to sob. Part of me wanted to smash the phone against the wall. Part of me wanted to laugh, because of course his big moment of humility had a little hook at the end. I'm sorry. Also, please give me back my public role. I didn't call him back. I saved the voicemail. And 2 weeks later, on my wedding day, he tried again. The church looked exactly like my childhood, but shinier. Someone had draped white fabric over the pews, hung flowers at the ends, wrapped the pillars in twinkling lights. It was all very tasteful, very neutral, very Instagram wedding board. I was in the bridal room with my mother, my maid of honor, and a small army of bobby pins when there was a knock at the door. My mother opened it and froze. My father stood there in a suit that fit slightly worse, than it had the last time he'd worn it. His hair was grayer. His shoulders looked smaller. But his presence filled the doorway the way it always had. "Can I talk to her?" he asked. My mother hesitated, then stepped aside. My maid of honor looked at me. "Do you want us to?" "Yes," I said. "All of you. Out." They filed past him in a little cloud of hairspray and perfume. My mother gave me a tight, worried look and closed the door behind her. For a second, it was just the two of us. Me in a white dress, him in his suit. Two actors backstage, about to improvise the most important scene of our lives without a script. He cleared his throat. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you," I replied. Silence. "I left you a message," he said. "I know," I replied. I wasn't sure if he listened. I did. He shifted his weight. His hands were clenched at his sides, not in anger this time, but like he was holding on to something invisible. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "All of it." I nodded once. "I know." Another silence. My heart was beating fast, but my voice was steady. It felt like someone else was talking for me, someone who'd been waiting a decade for this scene. "I was hoping," he said slowly, "that today maybe we could start over. I know I can't erase everything, but maybe we could take a step. You let me walk you down the aisle, not as property, just as your father. A gesture of," he swallowed, "of forgiveness, or at least the possibility of it." There it was again. The ask, wrapped in apologies, but still an ask. I looked at him, really looked at him. I saw the man who had taught me to ride a bike, the man who had yelled from the sidelines at my middle school soccer games, the man who had laid hands on strangers at the altar and prayed for their healing with tears in his eyes. I also saw the man who had sent his pregnant 16-year-old daughter away like a dirty secret, the man who had watched her sign away her child, the man who had declared the topic closed and then spoken at church about grace on Sunday mornings. He had said he was sorry. He had said he was a coward. He had said he wanted to do better. And he wanted me to signal my forgiveness by placing my arm through his and walking past all those people who believed he was a good man. I thought of my 16-year-old self, sitting in a hospital bed, holding a baby she didn't get to keep, while her father counted down the minutes until the paperwork was signed. I thought of the little boy out there somewhere, now 10 years old, with someone else's last name. I thought of all the times my father had talked about protecting his family when what he meant was protecting his reputation. He was right about one thing: he was a coward. I could have said all of that. I could have screamed it. I could have thrown something. I could have turned this room into a battlefield. Instead, I took a breath and said, very quietly, "No." His face flickered. Just a blink. A crack in the calm. "No," he repeated. "I appreciate the apology," I said. "Really, I do. I've waited a long time to hear anything like that from you. But I'm not ready to pretend we're healed because it looks better in the photos." His jaw tightened. "This isn't about photos, isn't it?" I asked, lifting an eyebrow. "You've had 10 years to apologize. You picked the day with the biggest audience." His mouth opened, then closed again. "I'm not punishing you," I went on. "You're invited. You're my father. You can sit in the front row. You can cry. You can pray. You can be part of this day. But you don't get to rewrite the story in the final act." He stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. "You're being cruel," he said finally. "I'm trying to make things right, and you're throwing it back in my face." There it was, right on schedule. The flip. "I'm not being cruel," I said. "I'm being honest. For once." His eyes narrowed. "You always did love to hold a grudge." I almost laughed. It came out as a short, sharp breath. "Believe it or not," I replied, "this is me letting go of one." He shook his head, stepping back like my words had physically pushed him. "Fine," he said. "Have it your way." Again, he turned and opened the door. For a second, I thought he would leave without another word. But he paused in the doorway and glanced back. "You'll regret this," he said. "One day, when I'm gone." Then he left. I stood there in my wedding dress, in a room full of flowers and makeup and mirrors, listening to my father try to guilt-trip me on my way to the altar. Something in me went very, very still. It was the same feeling I'd had in the hospital room 10 years ago when he declared the subject closed. Except this time I wasn't 16. This time, he didn't get the last word. The ceremony started on time. The music swelled. People stood. My mother dabbed at her eyes. My father sat in the front pew, shoulders stiff, hands folded, jaw clenched. And I walked myself down the aisle. No one gasped. No one fainted. The church didn't collapse. A few people looked confused. One whisper rippled through the pews and then died. I saw Daniel waiting for me at the altar, eyes soft, nervous. He smiled when he saw me. Everything else faded a little. We made it all the way through the first half without incident. Vows. Rings. The pastor, not my father, thank God, talking about love and partnership and patience. Then came the anyone who wishes to say something moment. We hadn't planned for that. The pastor was improvising. He just invited people to share blessings, memories, little snippets of wisdom. Mostly it was harmless. My aunt told a story about me trying to marry my teddy bear at age 5. Daniel's brother made a joke about his cooking. The pastor smiled and asked if there was anyone else. Suddenly, very calmly, I heard myself say, "Yes, I'd like to say something." A small, collective inhale swept the room. The pastor looked surprised, but stepped aside. "Of course, Rachel," he said. "Go ahead." I turned to face the congregation. I don't know what I looked like in that moment. Bride, obviously. But beneath the dress, I felt like a surgeon about to cut into something infected. "Thank you all for being here," I began. My voice rang louder than I expected in the high-ceilinged space. This is a day about love, about starting a new family, about truth. I saw my father shift in his seat. "I grew up in this church," I said. "Most of you watched me grow up. Sunday school, youth group, baptism." A faint ripple of laughter. "Some of you were there when I cried at the Christmas pageant because my angel costume was itchy." A few more chuckles. "Good. Let them relax. This place taught me a lot about God." I went on. About forgiveness. About confession. About the importance of truth, even when it's painful. I saw my father stiffen. My mother's hand moved to his arm. "There's a story in this family that we don't tell," I said. "Some of you might have heard whispers. Most of you probably haven't." That was the point. Keeping it quiet. Protecting the family. I let the words hang there for a second. "When I was 16, I said, I got pregnant." You could feel the oxygen leave the room. I heard someone in the back cough. A chair creaked. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips, but my voice stayed steady. "It was one mistake," I continued. "A stupid teenage mistake. But in our house, mistakes were not allowed to exist in the light. So I was sent away, to another town. I had the baby. I signed adoption papers. I came home, and we never spoke of it again. My throat tightened, but I kept going. I was told that God had forgiven me, that the only way to move on was to pretend it never happened, to keep the secret, to protect my father's reputation." I looked directly at him then. He stared back at me, face pale, eyes hard. "I've carried that silence for 10 years, I said. "I've carried the guilt, the shame, the grief of losing a child I wasn't allowed to talk about. I've watched my father stand in this church and talk about grace and mercy and second chances, knowing that, in private, he refused to offer any of those things to his own daughter." A murmur spread through the room. I raised my hand slightly. "I am not saying this to humiliate him," I said. "I am saying this because shame grows in the dark, and I am done living in the dark." My voice shook on that last line. "It was fine. Let it shake. 3 weeks ago," I went on, "my father called me and left a voicemail. He apologized. For the first time. He admitted he had put reputation above relationship. He said he was sorry for being a coward. He asked if I would let him walk me down the aisle today. You could feel the collective, without anyone saying it. "I want you to hear his words," I said. "Not to put him on trial, but because I think they matter. And because this is the only way I know to answer him honestly." I pulled my phone out of the tiny white clutch my maid of honor had insisted I carry. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the voicemail and pressed play, holding the speaker near the microphone the pastor used for sermons. For a moment, there was just static. Then my father's voice filled the church. "Hi, it's your dad." Every eye turned toward him. He sat perfectly still, like moving might make the building collapse. People listened, really listened. to the hesitations, to the practiced phrases, to the confession of cowardice, to the request at the end to walk me down the aisle. By the time the message ended, the room was very quiet. I took a breath. I'm glad he said those things, I said. I'm glad he finally named what he did, that he called it cowardice, that he acknowledged putting reputation above me. My voice softened, but my spine felt made of steel. I believe his apology is real, I said. I believe he is sorry. I also believe that forgiveness is not the same as pretending nothing happened. I looked at him again. His eyes were wet. He looked furious and broken, all at once. Dad, I said, speaking to him now, I forgive you. Not because you've earned it. Not because we're even. Not because I'm obligated. But because I don't want to carry this anymore. Because I deserve to walk into my marriage without your choices chained around my neck. I swallowed. But forgiveness, I added, doesn't mean handing you back your favorite stage prop. It doesn't mean giving you my arm today like nothing happened. It doesn't mean telling everyone here that you were always the loving, protective father they imagine when you pray over them at the front. A few people had the decency to look down. Today, I said, my answer to your voicemail is this. I heard you. I believe you're sorry. I forgive you. And I am still walking myself down the aisle. My father's mouth opened. For a second, I thought he might stand up, interrupt, perform some tearful, grand gesture. He didn't. He just sat there, spine rigid, jaw clenched, eyes burning. I turned back to the congregation. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, I said, it's not that my father is a villain, or that I'm a saint. It's that secrets will eat you alive. That calling something forgiven, while you're still using it to control people, isn't forgiveness. It's manipulation dressed up in Bible verses. A shaky laugh escaped someone's lips. I let them. Today I'm starting a new family, I said, looking at Daniel. With a man who knows all of this and chose me anyway. I don't come into this pretending my past doesn't exist. I bring all of it. The mistakes, the grief, the kid out there somewhere in the world who shares my DNA. And I bring my father's apology too. Not hidden in my voicemail. In the light. Where it belongs. I took a breath and smiled. A real one for the first time that day. That's all, I said. Thank you for listening. I turned back to Daniel. His eyes were wet. He mouthed, I love you. I love you too, I whispered. The pastor cleared his throat, clearly regretting ever opening the floor, and said, well, that was honest. Shall we proceed? We did. We finished the vows. We exchanged rings. We kissed. And the whole time, I could feel something loosening around my chest. Like a band that had been tightened for 10 years and finally snapped. People had reactions, of course. My aunt hugged me, so hard I couldn't breathe, and whispered. I knew something was wrong back then. I'm so sorry I didn't do more. One of the church ladies, the kind who collects prayer requests like gossip coupons, said, it was very brave, dear, in the tone people use when they mean. That was extremely inconvenient for me emotionally. Mark wasn't there. He hasn't been in my life for years, which is probably for the best. I heard somewhere that he moved states, started over, found his own version of grace. Good for him. My mother didn't say much. In the reception hall, she cornered me by the cake table, straightened my veil like a nervous tick, and murmured, you blindsided him. I know, I said. He'll survive. Her eyes flashed. This could ruin his ministry. Then maybe his ministry shouldn't have been built on a lie. She flinched, like I'd slapped her. You humiliated your father in front of the whole church, she hissed. On your wedding day. I took a breath. I didn't want to fight. I also wasn't going to let her rewrite what had just happened. I told the truth, I said. He's the one who chose to keep it a secret. He's the one who decided his reputation mattered more than my child. I'm done paying for his choices with my silence. Her mouth trembled. For a second, I thought she might finally say something real. Something true. Something about how scared she'd been. How trapped. How much she regretted sending me away. Instead, she pressed her lips together and walked away. Maybe one day. Maybe not. My father didn't stay long at the reception. He sat at the head table for exactly 40 minutes, spoke to no one unless they spoke first, and left without saying goodbye to me. My brother texted me later. He's mad. But he's also, I don't know, shaken. I've never seen him like that. Good, I thought, and then immediately felt guilty, because old habits die hard. The next morning, before Daniel and I left for our mini honeymoon, I went back to the church. Alone. The building was quiet. The flowers on the altar were already wilting. There were still programs scattered in the pews, like little paper ghosts. I walked down the aisle slowly, in jeans and sneakers this time. No dress, no audience. Just me, and the God I still wasn't sure how to talk to. I stood at the altar and looked up at the cross. So, I said out loud, that was a lot. If anyone was listening, they didn't say so. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, I admitted. I thought I'd feel victorious, clean. Whatever word they use in those testimonies where people cry and say, praise the Lord after describing a lifetime of trauma in 5 minutes. I sighed. I mostly just feel tired, I said. And lighter. Scared. And lighter. I thought about the boy I'd never met beyond a few hours in a hospital. Somewhere, he might be learning how to ride a bike. Losing a tooth. Complaining about math homework. Maybe he had his father's smile. Maybe my eyes. Maybe neither. Maybe both. I hope he's okay, I whispered. I hope he's loved. I hope he never hears the story the way I had to live it. I leaned my palms on the edge of the altar. It felt wrong, somehow, to stand where my father had stood so many times, declaring truth to people while hiding his own. This is my altar now, I said. My life. My story. Not his stage. My phone buzzed. For a second, I thought it might be my father. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hi, my name is Emily. I think I might be your son's adoptive mom. If I have the right person. If this is too much, I understand. But if you ever want to talk, we'd like you to know he's okay. He's loved. And he has your eyes. I stared at the screen. The world tilted a little, and then righted itself. Of course, I muttered. Of course you picked today. I sat on the front pew. And I cried. Not because I was broken. Not because I was ashamed. But because 10 years of silence don't leave your body quietly. When I finally wiped my face and stood up, my phone buzzed again. A new message. This time from my father. I'm sorry. Just that. No conditions. No requests. No hooks. For the first time, it sounded like he was talking to me, not managing me. I stared at the 2 messages side by side. The woman who'd raised the child I'd had to give away, offering me a glimpse into his life. The man who'd made me give him away, offering me, maybe the first honest sentence of his. Forgiveness is messy. People talk about it like it's a single moment. You pray, you cry, you forgive, and then you all have cake in the fellowship hall. In reality, it's more like surgery. You cut. It hurts. You bleed. You think you might die. Then, slowly, the infection clears. The scar stays, but you can breathe again. I don't know yet if my father and I will ever have a relationship that deserves the word close. I don't know if he'll keep doing the work, or if last night's humiliation will make him retreat into bitterness. What I do know is this. I walked away from my father's apology in the church parking lot. I refused to let him use it as a ticket back into the role of good father without doing the real work. Then I brought that apology to the altar. Not to shame him, but to stop shaming myself. I said the words he wouldn't. I told the truth he'd buried. I forgave him in public because that's where he'd always performed his righteousness. People can judge that however they want. Some will say I was cruel. Others will say I was brave. Personally, I think I was just done. Done pretending. Done protecting a man from consequences he created with Bible verses and threats. Done carrying guilt that didn't belong to me. At the altar that day, I didn't just marry Daniel. I divorced my father's version of a story, and I walked, alone and not alone, into a life where forgiveness doesn't mean silence, and love doesn't mean erasing myself to keep someone else comfortable. If that offends the church bulletin committee, they'll live. Or they'll clutch their pearls and pray for me. Either way, I'm finally free enough not to care.